Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, Jon LaClare.
Welcome to episode number 100 of the Harvest Growth Podcast. It's hard to believe as I look back. Our first episode aired on May 2nd, 2019. After about 3 years and 99 episodes until today, I'm going to share today some of our favorite learnings that our audience has had from comments I've received, and certainly that I've enjoyed over these past several years as well. One of our very early episodes was episode number 4. I shared the OxiClean story. That's the first time, and I think the only time until today, that I actually talked just myself to camera as opposed to doing an interview of somebody else. And I shared about how the story of OxiClean was founded. I encourage you to go back and listen to that. It's a great half-hour summary, I think, of the behind-the-scenes story of what happened to OxiClean. Now, technology's changed a lot since the 1990s when OxiClean was originally launched. And video marketing certainly looks different today than it did back then, but a lot of the principles really remain the same. It comes down to making a great quality product or service, generating repeat purchases where possible, generating word of mouth, really from quality, from experience, et cetera. And I would consider OxiClean one of the first real social media successes before social media really existed. Of course, this is before the time of Facebook, Instagram, and so many other social platforms that we know today. But one of the reasons it was so successful is consumers of OxiClean would share their experiences with others. They were so amazed with the results they had in removing stains from their clothing. They literally would talk about it in the elevator on their way to work, et cetera. So again, before social media existed, it started that viral nature. And one of the reasons is because it captured the attention of an audience and kept them through quality. So Billy Mays was an icon. He was one of the reasons ultimately we were able to capture attention so well and were so successful because of his amazing personality, but also his credibility and trust. Now, of course, unfortunately, Billy Mays is no longer with us today. There are other ways to capture attention and also to increase credibility with your consumers. Back then, it was all about live, quote unquote, live demonstrations. So Billy would perform, let's say, the fishbowl demonstration to remove black color from water. It was iodine or betadine at the time. Pour a scoop of OxiClean in, and it instantly turned to white. Magical, amazing demonstrations and real stains that were removed from clothing, from curtains, from fabric, from carpet, etc. Demonstrations can still be phenomenal when trying to prove a product works or show that a product works. There are many other ways to really generate credibility as well. It might be testimonials, for example. Today's testimonials look very different from what they did in the 1990s, early 2000s. So today it might be more around UGC or user-generated content. So getting real people to share their videos, their experience, written or in video. Video is always great, of course, on social media channels, using those videos in your own paid marketing mediums as well. That was a great learning from my time, of course, my experience that I shared in that quote unquote interview or that story that I shared in episode number 4. Just a few episodes later was episode number 8. This was Gui Gym. So they have been a client of ours for a long time. It's a great product. It's a simple fitness product meant for not really the elderly or those that are recovering. So you had 2 handles you grab and some tension between them as you pull them apart, back and forth. We helped them launch on TV back in the day several years ago and had great success and a lot of fun with them. Really, this interview I did was with Dan Valdez, one of the founders or entrepreneurs really at the helm of this. And he's also a founding stakeholder of the University of Houston Entrepreneurship Program, really one of the best in the nation. He's well known in that field and a true expert on entrepreneurship. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode again, Gui Gym, episode number 8 from almost 3 years ago. He talked about the value of mentors. Now, Dan's a mentor of mine and of many, many people because of his experience and his connections through the University of Houston, of course. He's a great mentor himself, but he also talked about how he has been mentored over the years by so many different people. And I have found in many interviews since then that mentorship is a really common thread of many of the most successful inventors, entrepreneurs, and product marketers. Finding people or agencies or groups or similar products similar companies to connect with, to learn from what they've gone through. They're going to go through, or you're going to go through similar mistakes and hardships and challenges that other people have been through before. Talk to them, get some learnings, and it can make that road to success, to get over the hurdles, much simpler. Also, it can be a lonely world sometimes running a business, being at the helm, being a CEO, being an inventor, working with mentors, with colleagues. They may be at your level, they may be ahead of you, they may be behind you in terms of success, in terms of revenues, but we can learn so much and develop that social connection as well. On to number 10. So episode number 10, now a couple of years ago, this was with Bob Circosta. He is such a good friend. We've worked together for so many years, and it still remains one of the top downloaded episodes of all time for our show. People still watch episode 10 from 3 years ago at a very high rate. So much so that we actually invited Bob to come back on the show just a few weeks ago, and you can listen to that newer episode as well. In his original episode, back episode 10, Bob, who's the original TV shopping host and a true HSN legend, literally the first person that sold anything on a HSN QVC style platform. Back in the day, it was radio. That's where they started, in Clearwater, Florida, on a radio station. He'll do a much better job, and did a much better job during that interview, sharing that entire story. So I encourage you to go back and listen to it, where he sold an avocado green can opener on the radio as a last ditch effort to get some revenue out of this inventory that they had. And they realized they were onto something. So they went from radio eventually to local TV, eventually to national TV. As they say, the rest is history. He walks through that whole background of how it happened from day one. But one of the learnings that I've heard him share from conferences that we've taught at over the years, seminars and in person, working with clients as well, is a simple principle called WSGAT. What's so great about that? WSGAT. So what's so good about that? This is a way to really identify the benefits that come from features of a product. So many times we try to think about, okay, we all know the features of the product we're selling, the color, the size, how it functions. We need to really communicate with our audience the benefits that we provide to them. That's where this WSGAT phrase comes in. If you think about a feature, again, a color, a size, weight, whatever it might be, the facts about the product, always ask yourself the question, so what's so good about that? How does that benefit my audience, right? Think about those benefits. That's the language you need to have in the messaging that you share with others. Now, Bob has been on air selling products live for over 40 years, over 10,000 hours of live selling experience, phenomenal amount, and thousands of products. And he can see immediate results because of the way that HSN works, or see or hear as sales come in, see the charts going up and down depending on what he's talking about. So he's honed that skill over so many years. If you watch some of his airings today or over the years, you'll see he's a master at the trade. But in that interview, and in the more recent one as well, he shares how he does it. So in ways that maybe none of us will ever be as good as Bob is, but we can learn from that and improve the messaging that we share by simply sharing benefits more than features, right? How are we benefiting or helping our audience? Make sure you focus on that. Right after that, we interviewed the founder of Grillbot. That was episode 11. So he's been a client for a long time, a good friend of ours as well. We first ran their national TV spot about 5 years ago. They're still in their 5th year running it over and over again, especially in the summer months. This, if you're not familiar with the Grillbot product, it's essentially, think of a Roomba for cleaning your grill. It's a robotic cleaner, a brush-driven cleaner that you put in your grill, shut the lid, put a timer on, and leave it. And it cleans phenomenally well the grates of your grill. So next time you come back out, you pull it out, your grill is ready to use. Super easy to use, fun product. His learning that he taught us was, hey, he said, don't do retail. Now, one thing I'll mention, of all these learnings, of all these interviews, sometimes they conflict with each other, right? So I just completed an interview yesterday with someone you'll hear soon that talked about the benefits of retail. Really doesn't do much in terms of direct to consumer or digital marketing, but has great success in retail. So it's different for everybody. The Grillbot story, though, his rationale for his product is, how do I carve out a direct to consumer market so I can keep all the margins myself? You control your audience, you control your story. And he's had great success with it. And one of the ways he was able to really grow that business was getting massive PR hits on shows like the Today Show, Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, these national news TV show experiences. And one of the reasons he was able to get on there is through persistence, right? This is not about, hey, make a phone call, hope they call you back. They don't, oh, well, move on. It's about being persistent, continue to network, continue to find opportunities. And that's another thread that you'll hear in a lot of our interviews. If you haven't heard them yet, since then as well, it's a common thread going through is just being persistent, getting out there and doing it. The biggest successes you hear, we always look at the end result of a successful product launch and think, why can't I be there yet, right? And you'll get there. It just takes work. It was never easy for anybody. The ones that seem easy, that seem like they got to this road or this end result very easily, it's not the case, right? It takes work. It takes persistence. Again, in his case, it was about getting on shows, and others, it may be through testing and optimizing and trying different price points and changing the product. There's always challenges in any product launch or any product campaign. With persistence, we can overcome them and turn them into a success. And again, all the biggest successes, any brand name you can think of, I encourage you to read their biographies. Listen to our show as well, of course, right? But beyond that, read their biographies, hear their stories. As an inventor, product marketer, or entrepreneur, you'll understand that you're not alone when you go through challenges. The best brands, the best products have all been there before. After that, I interviewed Sergey Berenov. He's a good friend as well. So Sergey, we've known for many years. We've done a few product launches together, actually, and are in the middle of another one that you'll hear about very soon. He's a good friend of ours, but also he's well known in the invention and licensing space. So he essentially has a workshop, comes up with ideas, creates them, and licenses them on to others. And he's done this dozens and dozens of times and had so many big successes. So we asked him for advice in our interview is, well, how do you do that, right? So how do you create things that are consistently so successful? One of the learnings he shared was to learn from failures. Realize that, of course, not everything is going to be a success, but as you have failures, whether it's within a product or whether you realize, well, hey, one didn't work, let me move on to the next one. The next iteration, the next product, you can make it better if you know why your last product or your last version failed. So often, in Sergey's words, we often give up or pivot far too soon rather than analyzing our failures. Don't just give up and move on to the next thing, but learn why it didn't work and make sure it doesn't happen again. Another principle he taught in that interview is to outsource tasks for free. So he builds a lot of partnerships because he's in this invention space and not everything works, right? He works with engineers, with CAD designers, with prototype manufacturers, and builds partnerships where they've got a piece of his success. And so sometimes they're willing to work for free or less expensively. So find those relationships that can reduce some of your risk in the very early stages of your business. And at the end of the day, if you don't have the funding on your own, you can secure a license deal. Realize there are partnerships out there. It's harder today than it was years ago. Sergey has great relationships. Companies know that he brings them good products. So that certainly helps. But license deals still exist. It's less common in the what we call as seen on TV space than it used to be 10 years ago. But it still exists. Big companies are so often looking outside for innovation as opposed to trying to innovate in-house, that it presents opportunities to be able to bring ideas and products into them where if you can show a little bit of success, a little bit of runway, proof that there's a market for your product, then you can take on and let them really scale up the business from that point forward. Shortly after that, I interviewed Scott Tannen. He's another good friend of mine that I've known for years, back to my days with Kraft Foods. Scott and I worked together at Nabisco, which was owned by Kraft back then. And he ran the candystand.com website. I don't even know if it's around, to be honest, anymore. This is 20 years ago, but it was extremely innovative at the time. It was before Facebook. It was a way to connect with your audience. So from kids to adults, they would go to candystand.com, play these games that were themed around, they had brands in the background, right? So Lifesavers was a brand we owned, Oreo and other Nabisco brands we owned, Planters was on there as well. So this Candy Stand website at the time was extremely innovative. It's not the same way you'd approach a launch or business today. And it's not the way Scott did when he rolled out his next business. When he left Kraft shortly after I did, a few years later, he started a company called Bowl and Branch. You may be familiar with them if you listen to satellite radio, if you watch news stations. They are on Fox News, CNN, and other platforms with national TV ads now. They started with some radio ads that really drove them to be successful and grew that business from zero. Literally, he founded the company for bedding sheets, right? They look the same as every other bedding sheet out there. They don't look innovative, but the story is compelling. The way they created the quality is very different. And he grew that business from zero to over $100 million with no investors. Think about that. No outside VC investors. And he did that because he built profitability into his marketing. That's a common thread as well, where to grow without VC investors behind us, we need to make sure that our marketing is profitable. Now he's got the tagline, the bedding used by 3 former US presidents. He's smart enough not to say which ones, to not be polarizing in terms of politics, right? I don't even know, as his friend, who they are, but it's part of their positioning, talking about quality. But one tactic is really what drove their initial growth. That comes back to radio. So a lot of satellite XM radio and local radio stations as well. In news, he found that was a market that was working. Before they found radio, they tried many different tactics and many didn't work. But once they hit that thread, they were able to make it profitable and able to scale it. So that direct to consumer marketing started on radio, eventually to TV. Of course, digital is part of that mix as well. Again, radio may not be for you. I want to reiterate this. All these learnings, as you think back to these 99 episodes and many more to come, it's not about following an exact path that somebody else followed, but follow the process. Learn from how did they launch their business. Radio will worked for him. It may be something else, certainly for your business, but follow the process, the paths that these great inventors and entrepreneurs followed. Another good friend I interviewed is Eric Child. Now, I went to grad school with him at the University of Chicago. We both got our MBAs together, graduated together, parted ways, and kind of came back together as friends later on. And he owns a business called FiberFix. Now, if you're a Shark Tank aficionado, he's one of many Shark Tank inventors or people that appeared on Shark Tank that have also been on our show as well. You can hear some of his background story behind it. He got a successful deal with Lori Grenier, took his product onto QVC, and they sold $1 million in a single day on QVC. Now, the way he got there wasn't about, hey, let's start on Shark Tank. They had success. They had a story. They had momentum before going on the show. And those are obviously the best deals, whether it's Shark Tank or whether it's other investors or whether it's growing on your own. It's that starting to generate success and then really building upon that as you go forward. For him, video marketing, he talks about, made all the difference, right? It's a chance. It was product. FiberFix is very different. It's unique. It's essentially, to describe it, if you're not familiar with it, it's, think of a broken shovel and you wrap this sort of tape around it. After it's submersed in water, as it dries, it becomes like a plaster cast, like you'd have on a broken arm, although stronger. It's as strong as steel, this bond to bond two things together. So not meant for around us or humans, but permanent solutions like a tool, a shovel, etc. Very cool demonstrations, but they really had to educate their audience. And so they use video marketing to do that. For them, it was all about, much like I shared with OxiClean, grabbing attention. So this can be through being unbelievable or humorous or both. Right. So FiberFix, they in their big video, the one that got the most attention for them, they used a quirky host, he was humorous, funny, talked about the product. And then in the middle of the video, he hopped in a car and drove it off a cliff. Of course, he's not actually in the car, right? When it drives off the cliff, but it makes it look like he is. He rolls down the cliff. They've got this roll cage all held together with FiberFix to prove that it works. So it's that combination of humor, but also this unbelievable result, this demonstration. We call it a torture test, right? If it can do that, then it can fix my shovel, right? If it can solve these massive problems, then for me, I just need a simple fix. I know FiberFix, for example, is going to work for us. Now, that was a massive video budget to do something like that. And they couldn't have done that on day one of their business, right? They build momentum behind that and built up to that big budget video. But there's some good learnings to take from that. So even if you're just starting off, creating your own videos in-house or hiring somebody else, it's about making sure, especially in the digital world, in the first 3 seconds of a video, you grab their attention, right? And this could be done through an amazing demonstration. Going off a cliff is expensive, right, in a car. There are other amazing demonstrations that prove your product works, right? Does what it says it's going to do. Grabbing with funny or an odd-looking spokesperson. So grab their attention. Like they stop this scroll. I want to see what this person has to say. or it could be even a product shot, right? So grabbing their attention rather than just somebody talking on screen like UGC or user-generated content. Before that, sometimes it can be very beneficial to either have them hold a product or put the product digitally on screen to show, okay, I know what this is. It's a supplement or it's a fitness product or whatever it might be. Grab their attention, go into the testimonial so you have them leaning forward. They know what they're about to watch or listen to. Another success we shared was vivalife. Their product is called Med Manager. We interviewed the team there behind it. It's a family business. They built a binder to hold prescription medications. Now, this seems like a very simple product. I don't take a lot of prescriptions personally. I didn't get it when they reached out to me until I talked to my mom, who takes a lot, like a lot of elderly people, right? A lot of medications. I had no idea how difficult it is to organize and use the product. They understood their audience, right? So their father is a physician, so he gets it, right? So that's understanding your audience drove the product development. But they've been able to achieve over 8 figures in revenues, really by finding the right audience. For them, it became all about targeting, finding those people that take a lot of medications. Some of it's driven by age and other factors as well. But video marketing and digital marketing channels is really what helped to educate and inform their audience and really build this sales base. And then one thing they did too, something to think about, is they built a distribution agreement with Case-It. So if you have kids that might be in middle school, you might be familiar with the Case-It brand, right? So it's like the old Trapper Keepers from my generation growing up, those binders they use in school, massive business that they sell in Walmart, Target, et cetera. So they signed an agreement where Case-It actually manufactures. It's fairly simple technology, right? It's a fairly simple binder, or similar, I should say, binder to the Case-It. So Case-It creates and manufactures for them, but also distributes it to retail outlets. So a distribution agreement like that, once you've got a product that's proven, that can be a great way to really propel your growth, where you don't need to build each individual, both manufacturing relationship as well as distribution relationship or retail relationship. Work with somebody else who already has those in place. That's what these guys have done to really drive their growth. Another fun interview that came after that is by the founders of The Onion. So if you're familiar with The Onion, Babylon Bee is kind of a new one like that. The Onion is a college, started off as kind of sort of college newspaper, now a website, just very humorous. It's satire, was a big brand a few years ago. They were the founders of that. They started a business called Pranko. So if you've ever seen these gift boxes that are a total gag gift, on the outside, it has pictures, it looks like a real product. It's just a box that you open it up and give a gift to somebody. So there's humor involved in it. One example that they shared was the family blank ease, right? So the Snuggie, if you remember that, it was like a family version of a Snuggie. So like 4 people can sit on a couch and there's 8 armholes coming out of it. Just a joke, right? So you've got this box on the outside and it's something just totally fun. There's no need for that in anyone's life other than for humor, right? So it's a funny interview. These guys are, of course, hilarious. Go back and listen to that one. I encourage you if you haven't already. It's an older interview, but Pranko is a great one to listen to. They talked about the importance of giving your business a personality by injecting humor. Now, that's easy when you've got a funny product like they do, but in reality, humor can be so beneficial. We don't need to take ourselves so seriously all the time, right? It's okay to laugh at ourselves, our product, as long as it's not, again, talking about credibility where people lose belief that our product's going to work. But building that humor, that personality of some sort into your brand, into your story. They also closed out their story talking about the combination of e-commerce and retail for maximum growth. So again, a previous interview talked about avoiding into retail at all costs. Later on, just recently, we interviewed someone who talks about just retail, not digital, right? Theirs was the combination. So finding that right business strategy for your product or service is going to drive your own maximum growth. For them, it happens to be that combination of e-commerce that drives awareness, and then retail outlets. So that, hey, now I've seen that on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. I see it in store now. I'm going to grab it. So that's a big learning from them. Another one was Wonder Wallet. Shortly after that, so you may have seen this product. It's a quote unquote as seen on TV product that's relatively recent, the last few years. This was an interview where he, for the first 2 years of business, was slow, right? He generated $130,000 in sales over the first 2 years. That's nothing terrible, right? Nothing to sneeze at. But he knew there could be so much more. He just didn't want to deal with the setup, the entire business. So he secured a license deal. He went on to sell over 2.5 million units and over $39 million in revenue. It's an inspiring story where he talks about the potential that can come with licensing. So if you're someone who loves to do, much like Sergey, right? Loves to do product development, doesn't want to deal with the minutia of running a business, a license deal can work. It still takes persistence, right? Just like running a business. But when you secure that deal with the right partner, someone you can trust, someone who has experience, you can generate, of course, high levels of sales behind that as well. I also interviewed the founder of Elliotttigo. You've probably seen these maybe in videos, maybe as you are around town, but they look kind of like bicycles. They have two wheels. It's like a combination of bikes and an elliptical machine. So you work on it just like you would be on an elliptical machine. It's more of a running motion, but it works like a bike. So for them, it was about finding the right distribution channel. So it felt like, hey, this looks like a bike. Let's start selling in bike stores. Not a fit though, right? Cyclists don't want that. This is for runners, right? Those that want to keep running, but have issues with their knees, right? Don't want to just do ellipticals indoors. They want to get outside. Once they really understood that and started targeting running stores and where runners were at, general sporting goods stores, because they understood their audience, that propelled their growth tremendously. And over the past couple of years, especially, their growth has really skyrocketed. Really, once they understood who their customer really was. A very recent interview was with Derek Monk. He's the founder of Kitsch Inventions, and he's got 3 products we talked about: the Spoon Buddy, the Pan Buddy, and the Strip and Snip. So a couple we'll talk about. These are in Bed Bath & Beyond, Home Goods. They've been on HSN, Good Morning America. He's had great success with this. This business has grown. The Spoon Buddy, to describe it quickly, is like a spoon rest with a suction cup on the bottom, sits on your countertop, can go on the top of a lid. Great design for sure. Really fun product. And the Pan Buddy is a handle holder for cast iron frying pans that can be really heavy. So it gives you leverage to pick up and hold. So he's got these unique ideas. He was able to get them onto these national shows because they're good ideas, but there's a lot of good ideas out there, right? Many of them never make it onto national news shows. He again talked about the value of persistence. It just takes time. Figure out those relationships, keep working at it. No, we don't want to bug them, but we want to keep at it until eventually we break through. The nice thing is once you have that relationship set, you've got one success, get it on Good Morning America, and they sell a lot from their show. They realize, or the audience loves it. It makes it so much easier to go back with future products as well. So build off of those relationships. Another thing he talked about is the benefit of producing in the USA. So it's hard to do, especially for plastics and silicone products. You almost think it's impossible. He's done it, right? And one of the things he realized is, even though the piece rate cost, so the manufacturing cost for an individual unit is much higher in the US than it is in China, let's say, the freight costs, especially today, are significantly lower. You're not taking that boat overseas, and your lead times are shorter, right? So even in 2 years ago, before COVID slowed everything down, before we've had these big logistical issues, even back then, it always took at least 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks typically, to boat a truckload or a container full of product from China, let's say, to America, and then truck it from there to wherever your fulfillment warehouse is. So even then it was a month and a half, right? It's hard to plan like that. When you've got US-based manufacturing, your lead times are so much shorter. So he's been able to be very flexible. He talked about how his business has grown by taking advantage of last minute opportunities. So one example was on HSN where they called, hey, we've got an opening here. Somebody couldn't get us inventory in time. Can you get us inventory, get on the air? And he said, absolutely. He met with his US manufacturer. They're able to turn it around very quickly, got it on the air. So his revenues grew tremendously because of that short lead time. Of course, quality was so much better than he would have had overseas. And then that freight cost made it so it wasn't that much more expensive at the end of the day than when you work everything out, buying it from a place like China. We also interviewed a couple of the founders of Boogie Board. Now, there's a couple of Boogie Boards. This is not the surfing one. This is, if you've seen or been around any kids age 2 to 10, you've seen this product. So it looks like a little simple iPad. They write on with a stylus and then hit a button to erase. So they can draw, write, etc. So in fact, if you're watching the video version of this, this is a Boogie Board. You can see you can write even with a fingernail, hit a button, and it erases. So it's a great product. They've got so many line extensions and have had such great success in retailers like Target, Walmart, Sam's, Costco. They talked about how a lot of their success came from listening to their consumers. Now, we do a lot of work. We love this client. We've done TV campaigns and dozens of digital campaigns with them to really help them grow in their direct-to-consumer market as well. But they talked about listening to consumers, help them develop, realizing that different versions of the product work for different, maybe age groups, genders, et cetera. So they've got adult line of products or products for parents or adults, and then products for kids as well with characters and fun things in different sizes. So really understanding your market is really what drives growth for them. Another thing they talked about in their interview was knockoffs. Now, this is something that every inventor should be not fearful of, but aware of, right? So especially in the age of Amazon, knockoffs are out there. When you've got success, Amazon even sees it and knocks off simple products. It's crazy, right? Like the retailer steals your idea if it's not patented, protected, et cetera, and knocks you off. In the case of Boogie Board, they've got the patents in place, but they've got cheap Chinese knockoffs that have come in that look very similar, and they cut the price down low. What happens is people buy those, they have a poor experience, and they even call up Boogie Board and complain saying, hey, your product doesn't work. And they realize, well, it's not theirs, it's a knockoff, right? And there's a reason for that. But that has helped them to build a reputation with consumers that when you buy a real Boogie Board, you've got great quality you can know and trust. The way they win is with quality and awareness marketing. So building up a big awareness campaign so people know the brand, and then when they have an experience to purchase your product, trusting the quality leads to further word of mouth and trust, and of course better reviews, et cetera. So that quality story is how they've been able to win that battle against these cheap knockoffs that are coming in from overseas. So I can't summarize every episode. I do encourage you to go back and listen to those and many others. And we're going to be around for a long time. So please listen to the next 100 interviews as well. But after the first 99 interviews, so this is the 100th today, I've learned that every successful product launch really has its own nuances. There's a different path to success. It can look different, but the process is the same. The process that we follow and that I've seen every successful inventor or product marketer that I interviewed follow, it's really about three things: test, optimize, and grow. So the marketing channels, the language, the pricing, the manufacturing, there's so many different nuances to this that can change. But if you follow that process of testing a campaign, optimizing it, improving it, getting it profitable, and then growing it, it's not about bringing VC dollars in and just throw a bunch of money at it, right? Get it working, and that'll fuel the growth organically for your business. That process was followed by every one of these 99 successful businesses, and it'll work for you as well, and the many more interviews that we have to come. I encourage you, please check out these episodes. You can go to harvestgrowth.com to see all the episodes we've recorded over the past several years and the many more that will come. Click on the podcast link at the top of our website. And if you want to learn how you can profitably grow your own consumer product business, please subscribe to our show. Be sure to leave us a review, and you can always reach out to us right from harvestgrowth.com. Thank you so much.